So, this is our house where presumably our uncle lives with us, but does he just sleep on that chair? There's only one bed in here and we sleep on it. Where do we shower? Do we shower? Is there any place to cook our food? Also, during the sequence where Zelda communicates with us, it was dark, but when our uncle tells us he's going out, a light turns on. Is there electricity in this world? How did a light turn on? We have electricity, but not plumbing?
Sorry, I'm going out for a while. I'll be back by morning. Don't leave the house.
So, did our uncle hear that too? Because I thought Zelda was just communicating telepathically with us in our sleep. Was she communicating with everyone in the house? Otherwise, I don't know why our uncle had the urge to go to Hyrule Castle, sword and shield in hand.
I will give 100 rupees to the man who finds the descendants of the wise men. The king.
That's a stingy-ass king. 100 rupees aren't exactly hard to come by.
Sorry. You can do it. Save the princess. Zelda is your...
My sister? One true love? Dad's cousin's roommate? I kinda need to know, because this relationship could get real awkward real fast.
Do you have a light? It's pitch dark inside and you can't see without one.
No worries, princess. My face just so happens to shine enough of a bright light that I don't actually need a lamp.
As a test, can you retrieve the Pendant of Courage from the East Palace?
You know, between Zelda trusting me to defeat an evil wizard and Sriracha Sauce over here thinking I can just earn 3 pendants from 3 different and dangerous palaces, that's putting a lot of trust into a kid who's apparently never even wielded a sword before today. What if I died? What if I wasn't the hero of legend? You guys are just cool with having that on your conscience? Just sending a kid with absolutely no credentials to his doom?
Abracadabra, alakazam! You will open a desert lock with the Book of Mudora.
I don't know what that is or means yet, so this has been very unhelpful. Here's 15 rupees. You know what's crazy? Flute Boy looks more like Link than Link does in this game.
Yeah, Chari, now I'm quarreling with my younger brother. I sealed the door to his room.
I'm sorry, you sealed the door to his room? Like, you walled him off and the only way to see him again is if I literally bomb the wall? That's not quarreling, that's abusing.
Hey, Chari, did you come from my older brother's room? Is he still angry?
Well, if he wasn't before, he certainly is now that I bombed a wall he put up. Also, how are you so chill about this? The guy put up a literal wall between you two!
So the doorway is open again. Okay. Maybe I should make up with my brother.
Really? The way to get you to apologize to your brother was to detonate an explosive in your house? The f*** did he do that made you so angry? If you have enough time to read this sign, you should go to the goal immediately. Well, excuse me. When I decided to read this sign, I thought I'd get more pertinent information, not mockery and chicanery. Oh, well, that's just mean. Certainly my nose isn't that erect and square.
Anyway, look for the Elder. There must be someone in town who knows where he is.
I find this bit of dialogue fascinating because while you can visit Kakariko Village before finding Sasquatchola, Princess Zelda literally marks his location on your map before you can even roam Hyrule freely. There's not much of a reason to visit here first unless you want the bug-catching net and a couple of magic bottles before tackling the first palace.
Hey, kid, this is a secret hideout for a gang of thieves. Don't enter without permission. By the way, I heard that one of our ex-members is staying at the entrance to the desert.
What an absolutely bizarre thing to say. Like, imagine if someone broke into your house and you were like, "Hey man, what the hell are you doing? This is my house! Get out!" Also, I saw on Facebook that my childhood best friend who I haven't talked to in years lives in a trailer park next to a Walmart 2 towns over. Like, cool man, what the f*** am I supposed to do with that information? What does that have to do with me breaking in here?
Oh, no, not the beast! Not the beast! Ah!
Tra-la-la, look for Sahasrara.
Okay, not to point out the obvious, but that was weird. Using a buzz blob turning into a Cukeman to exemplify what the magic powder does probably wasn't the best idea, because I feel like the only thing it would teach me is that already weird things turn into weirder, no less dangerous things that can talk to you and give you advice you don't need.
Why did you take my sign? It says plain as day to just leave me alone. Sheesh.
True, but it said nothing about not disturbing your sign, so I've done nothing wrong.
Chari, it is I, Sahasrara. You must never fail to find all the treasures in each dungeon.
Cool, thanks, Sashimi Sauce. Really glad I risked getting blasted with a death laser for you to share that epic nugget of wisdom. Awesome.
You got the power glove. You can feel strength in both hands.
With just one glove? It's not the power gloves.
You bought Zora's flippers. With these, you should be able to swim, even in deep water.
Oh, I get both these time? I don't just get one flipper that lets both my legs swim? So there are 2 mysterious ponds in the game, one in the light world and one in the dark world, which allow you to upgrade 2 specific items in your inventory each. My question is this also a trial and error thing? Like, I can only upgrade my boomerang and shield in the light world one, but how would I know? Just throw things in until the fairy happens to upgrade them? I don't know, that doesn't sound too fun. Big trouble? Last time I threw rupees in the pond, you said I was gonna have good luck today. And that was like 5 seconds ago. Also, I have to read this text every time I donate rupees, and considering that in order to max out your bombs and arrows in this game, you need to give Venus 1,400 rupees, and the fact that you can only increase the amount per every 100 rupees you give, compounded by the fact that you can only throw in 50 rupees at a time regardless of how many you have, and the fact that the first time around you can only give 20 max at a time, I have to come back here. 1,400 rupees divided by 100 is 14, times 2 is 28, which is how many times I need to come here if I donate 50 rupees each time, but the first upgrade requires 5 visits, meaning 14 minus 1 equals 13, times 2 is 26, plus the first 5 visits is 31, 50 times 26 is 1,300, plus 20 times 5 is 100, 1,400, yep, 31 times. And unless you get the big trouble or great luck messages, that doesn't mean anything. And it means even less if you can just overwrite it with 50 more rupees.
Watch your step. There are holes in the ground. Could you turn right here?
So this is a huge obstacle you run into when you're working with a strictly written medium. I don't exactly know if the old man is asking me to turn right here or turn right here. Turning right here from where we're facing leads us down a dead end with a bunch of keys. Turning right here could mean anything. Left or right, one which leads to a dead end and the other leading to a more roundabout path, or back, where we just came from. And both are wrong because the way to this guy's house is to the player's right, meaning straight ahead for them. Maybe he means turn slightly to avoid the hole in the ground? But not only can I see that hole, you just told me there was a hole there, so he has to mean for me to turn somewhere specifically. Especially because in just a few seconds, he says the exact same thing and does end up leading us to where we need to go.
Tara, it is I, Sahasrahla the Elder. I have some advice. In the dungeons, you can gaze into the magic mirror to return to the entrance at any time.
Wait, how does he know I even have a magic mirror? Isn't he communicating with me telepathically? Meaning he can't see me, right? Huh? Why didn't that wall blow up? It's clearly got cracks in it. I thought cracks were the brilliant solution to not making me waste my bombs like a dumbass trying to find which walls I can blow up. What, are those just there for the aesthetic? The Moldorm boss fight, while not the hardest thing in the world by any means, is still pretty annoying because in the event that you fall off the platform, once you come back, its health gets reset, as if you'd never entered this room in the first place. Except, you know, any damage you took remains. So this Cucco seems to be immortal. You can slash at it a whole bunch and it takes damage, but it'll never— Ah! Jesus! What the f***? I didn't know! I'm sorry! I'll turn vegan, I swear!
Listen well, Charlie. Even with the Master Sword, you cannot inflict physical harm on the wizard. You must find a way to return his own evil magic power to him.
Well then what the f*** did I get this sword for? What's the point of having the Blade of Evil's Bane if I can't even hurt the evil with the blade? How is it its Bane then? The bug-catching net. I can reflect Aghanim's magic back at him with the bug-catching net. I got this thing before I even visited the second palace. Why the hell would I get the Master Sword then? Magical sword that can only be retrieved by someone that collects 3 mystical pendants from monster-riddled temples, or a stick with some rope I got from a sick kid. Yeah, those are the same.
Cluck, cluck. What? You turned me into a human. I can even speak! Aha, it must be you who's always teasing my friends. The weathercock is always watching you harass them. Well, this human shape is uncomfortable for me. I just want to be a chicken again. Cluck, cluck.
Holy shit, and I don't say this often, but did I just ruin this chicken's life? One of the pieces of heart can be found in this house in the Village of Outcasts, the Dark World version of Kakariko Village. And while I was lucky enough to find it on my second go-around, it could take you ages to find this if you're unlucky enough. And unless you're getting rupees back, which isn't uncommon, you'll be paying 30 rupees each time just to try and find it.
My name is Chris Houlihan. This is my top secret room. Keep it between us, okay?
Don't worry, Chris. I'm sure that the fact that your room can only be accessed as a failsafe if the game detects an error in our Y coordinate, and the fact that it wasn't you but your gamer father who entered that Nintendo Power contest back in 1990 to have their name put in an NES game, but that instead submitted their child's name, who then got their first name put into a Game Boy part of a soccer game, only to then have the editor who ran the contest advocate for immortalizing the winner even further by putting their name in the best The Legend of Zelda game at the time, even though you ended up not really caring much about video games as an adult and so are pretty ambivalent about the whole thing. I won't tell anyone about your secret room that people have known about for decades. Thanks for the rupees, by the way. Whoa! How long was that bird trapped in there? How is that any different than the Ether Medallion? Aren't they kind of both just screen nukes? I love how there's nothing I can do to these water tektites other than hope I lure them somewhere else. Nothing I have can hurt them, and I can't slash at them when I'm in the water myself, so when I'm in an enclosed space like this one, I just have to take the hit.
You are the only one who can destroy Ganondorf the thief. No, Ganon, the evil king of darkness. Do you understand?
No, not really, because this is the first time I'm hearing the name Ganondorf, who is apparently the same person as Ganon, except they're not, because Ganon is the Dark World version of Ganondorf? I think? It's a moot point since Ganondorf's technically not even in this game, so it's weird to introduce another persona that we don't get to see. While it kind of enriches the story, it also just adds unnecessary confusion to it. This heart piece is even worse to find than the chest house one. You're supposed to dig in this field until you find it, and it could be anywhere. But no matter how fast you dig, you'll only ever cover roughly half of the field. So you gotta hope that it just so happens to be in one of the 112 possible spots you managed to dig in a 30-second time frame. So I was a bit confused for a second because I couldn't remember how to get into the dungeon part of Skull Woods, because the way to get in is by going behind some trees underneath a pit with a flower next to it, which at first glance makes it seem like I can't pass through there at all. The Wall Masters are back in this game, but they dropped from the ceiling in this one. Wouldn't that make them ceiling masters? The Mothula fight is pretty rough, mostly due to two reasons. To start, obviously the fact that you have to try and hit it while the floor is moving, forcing you to constantly be on the move, which is made worse by the fact that the blade traps around the arena start to move across to the other side of where they're at. The second reason, and something I unfortunately forgot to do before I came here, is because usually the boss at the end of a dungeon will be weak to the respective dungeon item you find, in Mothula's case the Fire Rod. Which makes sense, right? Like a moth to a flame. The problem is that while Mothula is weak to the fire from the Flame Rod, you'll only be able to beat it with that item if you get the magic meter upgrade before coming here, and if you don't, you'll definitely run out of magic and have to get up close to attack a target that's constantly moving, while on a floor that's constantly shifting, while dodging not only the boss's attacks, but the spikes that fly across the arena. Could you do it without getting hit? Sure, in the same way that you could survive falling out of a helicopter onto a bed of spikes. It's incredibly unlikely, but you could do it. Oh well, no wonder he can never find the damn frog. He's been in the Dark World this whole time! It's kind of funny that to reveal the true form of one of the bosses in the Dark World, you have to shine a light on him. A light which comes from the Dark World outside. Whoa, wait, what? I can just bring people back from the Dark World with me with the magic mirror? Well, why haven't I been doing that with all the other NPCs that are trapped there? You're telling me I could have saved Flute Boy from becoming a tree? That was friggin' sad. You made me watch that instead of letting me save him right then and there? Getting the fourth magic bottle is kind of confusing because you need to bring a chest that you find in the Dark World version of the Smithery to the guy whose sign we stole earlier in the Light World, who then tells you that he knows that we know that he used to be a thief, which is information we got from the guy in the thieves' hideout we broke into earlier. The thing is, sure, we know that guy used to be a thief, but why would we ever think that he's the one that's supposed to help us open this random chest? It's not necessarily illogical, I understand how you can reason that, but given that the only person who tells you that this guy is a master locksmith is a hand in the Dark World where you find the Ice Rod in the Light World, an area that you would otherwise have no reason to return to the point that I just found out this NPC exists as I'm writing the sin, it's quite a gamble to assume that the player is going to remember that information about this guy and reason that because he used to be a thief, that means he knows how to pick locks, meaning he's the one that's supposed to open the chest for us. Especially when his sign explicitly asks us to leave him alone. While the Cane of Burn is an excellent item due to how it can protect you from harm, it also feels kind of redundant given the existence of the Magic Cape, which you can obtain around the same time with the added benefit of being invisible to enemies. Speaking of the Magic Cape, the way you get it is by dashing to the tombstone on the top right of the graveyard, which is weird because literally every other tombstone moves by just pushing it. I guess this one is just stuck? How was I supposed to know that, though? The sign at the Lake of Ill Omen says, "Curses to anyone who throws something into my circle of stones," which is leaving out a bit of an important detail. That something you need to throw is a skull, specifically. If you throw a flower, which are also found around here, nothing happens. And speaking of this area, which is where you get the Quake Medallion, I just remembered that the Quake Medallion lets you open the entrance to Turtle Rock, whereas the Ether Medallion lets you open the entrance to Misery Mire. But the Bombos Medallion is the only one that you don't really need for anything. It's completely optional. And again, nothing against having optional items, but all it is a screen nuke that sets everything on fire, whereas the Ether Medallion freezes everything. Functionally, they're not too different from each other. As well, the Quake Medallion's only difference is that it gets rid of all enemies or turns them into a slime, but unlike the other two, this one only works on grounded enemies, so really, aside from the one time we need to use it, this one's even less useful than the Bombos Medallion. You can also use it to shake a bunch of trees and get items from them, but it's probably no faster than just ramming into them yourself.
I laugh at your misfortune. Now your magic power will drop by 1/2.
Well, no, the power stays the same, but the cost to use it is now halved. Do you know that? You know what? I'm not gonna look a gift horse in the mouth. The Ice Palace is one of the few dungeons in the game that I'm not a huge fan of, not just because of the ice physics and bottomless pits, but because there are so many twists and turns, specifically when you're trying to solve the dungeon's main puzzle that requires turning a specific switch to push a specific block down to a specific area. You have ample opportunities to get magic and health back, but with so many rooms, it's so easy to get turned around and not know where to go when you first play this. Suddenly Kracko. Robes. This pit sucks because so far, the game has taught me that if I can see a texture within the pit, I can fall to a lower level, and that if the pit is instead completely dark, that it's a bottomless pit that will damage me, so why would I think to jump down here? I guess it's the only other thing that gets revealed when I light the torches, but it still goes against what you taught me. What, can I dash into blade traps to get fairies now too? We're not following rules suddenly, so I don't know.
You got the Cane of Somaria. It will be very helpful if you make proper use of it.
Well, that's most items, though. So what the Cane of Somaria does normally is summon a block that you can use to either throw at enemies or place on switches, and that would have been great to have during the last palace! Also, for those of you that joined me during my first ever playthrough of this game during the livestream marathon, first of all, thank you. Sorry, it's been so long, I hope to get back to it very soon. Second of all, yes, I know that you guys let me know about getting the Cane of Somaria before doing the Ice Palace to effectively trivialize that puzzle, but unless stated otherwise, or if I'm showing off some really easy or funny exploits, I usually like to pretend that this is my first time playing these games to give the audience a sense of what it might be like for new players, but don't tell anybody, shh. You know, not for nothing, but I would have thought that slicing a giant eyeball with a sword that shoots fire would defeat it in one shot. I'm uncomfortable when I have an eyelash in my cornea. I don't even want to imagine being stabbed in it. Suddenly Pokey from Super Mario Bros. Oh, come on! You weren't even trying with this one! That's just a chain chomp and you know it! Oh, this part is awesome. I love not being able to see where I'm going or where I'm supposed to go. While I think this part is pretty cool, it does rely on the player figuring out something that they've never had to do before and something they won't really ever have to do again. While you might have figured out that you can strafe while holding down the spin attack button, you may not have noticed that the direction in which you strafe determines where Link positions his shield. Like I said, I think this part is pretty cool in that you have to use such an underutilized mechanic, but that's also why I don't know why they would expect you to figure this out. Earlier, we had a room where the eyes would only shoot their laser at us if we were facing it, and that by itself would have been easy enough to figure out. So long as you're not facing its direction, it won't shoot and the path will open, but here, not looking at it isn't enough. I guess you'd figure it out eventually, but not because you can really appreciate where Link is holding his shield. You'd probably be confused as to why strafing while looking in a certain direction worked when the other directions didn't. Of all the times for Shamalama Ding Dong to use his telepathy to give us advice, I'm surprised this wasn't one of them. Yeah, thanks for the tip about bringing medicine and magic. I'm sure I would have figured that out by the first room. Another cool effect the Ether Medallion has, seriously I don't know why we even have the other two, is the ability to briefly reveal to the player where to walk on invisible paths. And again I ask, how are you supposed to know you can do this? Like, why would I think that freezing the enemies on screen would help reveal a secret path for a second? There's a cool little thing you can do where you can bring the fish that appears once you open the waterway in the Great Swamp to the merchant in Kakariko Village, and not only is doing that one of the hardest things I've had to do in this game, but for some godforsaken reason, you can toss the fish into a wall tile where it can get stuck. It can free itself, and I got lucky here, but I thought I was going to have to walk all the way back to get another one just because I decided to deal with the enemies in this area that otherwise make this part a pain. And for the love of Hylia, make sure that if you do this, that you do it when you need things. I didn't know what this did, and I almost had my inventory maxed out, so I really didn't even benefit from doing it.
These are the silver arrows. To give Ganon his last moment, you definitely need them. I know I don't quite have the figure of a fairy.
Says who? As far as I'm concerned, the only thing a fairy needs to look like a fairy is wings, and girl, you got those. Also, get f***ed! This is where you're supposed to find the silver arrows? I could have gone to fight Ganon and not know I needed to do this! Literally every other item I can upgrade from the Ponds of Happiness is optional. Yeah, sure, of course I'd rather have the upgraded item, so naturally I'm going to do it when I can, but my point is that you could totally miss this! You'd have to know that the shop in the Dark World where Link's house is in the Light World even sells a specific bomb you need to open up the wall to this place, then you would only know that if you come back here after collecting the crystals from the Ice Palace in Misery Mire. Before then, all he says is that he's working on it, but you're never forced to come back here, nor do any of the characters you would regularly interact with guide you this way. Like, I get it, you are supposed to explore and come across these things yourself, but that's kind of contrasted with other moments that happen in the main story where you are specifically guided to where you need to go and what you need to do. The game is honestly pretty good at that, to the point that I never feel like I need to use the fortune teller, and the fact that 3 out of his 16 fortunes are about getting the super bomb, finding something inside the pyramid in the Dark World, and that you need the silver arrows, it's pretty telling that almost a fifth of the things he's programmed to tell you involve something they could have just designed a bit better. Is it just me, or do you get the red mail pretty quickly after getting the blue mail? Like, you spend most of the game in the Green Jerkin, and there are a couple of items you need before you can even do the Ice Palace, namely the Fire Rod from Skull Woods and the Titan's Mitt from Thieves' Town, neither of which can be done before completing the Palace of Darkness, meaning that at earliest, this is the 7th out of 11 dungeons, 8th if you're going in order, so you don't even have the blue mail for that long. We interrupt A Link to the Past to bring you that scene in The Incredibles where Mr. Incredible gets caught using Syndrome's computer. This is a minor one, but in the Moldor Brief-fight in Ganon's Tower, the way forward involves you heading south to hookshot over a pit. But the camera doesn't show you the bottom platform unless you go to the bottom of where you currently are, which I wouldn't really think to do because I can see that there's nothing but a pit, whereas there's an alternate entrance on the other side of where you entered, which is more immediately obvious, so why wouldn't you think that that's where you needed to go instead? Wait, so Ganon was Aghanim, but possessed Aghanim in the form of a bat? Or was Ganon literally inside Aghanim this whole time? Because neither of those really makes sense, for reasons we'll get to in a bit, but if it was just the bat that was possessing him, why a bat? Whoa, wait, I can call on the bird in the Dark World? Why can't I during regular play? I assume the reason you couldn't was because the bird's not with you at all times, and so would still be in the Light World. Is this a different bird? If not, how is the bird here? This fight. Huh, haven't busted out one of those in a while. Anyway, the reason this fight sucks is because Ganon has an enormous amount of health, and much like the Moldorb fight, if you fall off the stage at any point, you have to start the fight all over again. And if you've spent any fairies or used any medicine, you would now need to go back and get more. And the worst part of this damn fight is after he collapses the floor entirely, because he then enters a phase that requires you to light 2 torches located at the bottom corners of the arena, making it easy for him to hit you with an attack and bump you off the stage. And the reason you have to light the torches is because without both of them being lit at the same time, you can't hurt Ganon. Bear in mind, the torches don't stay lit. They'll burn out after about 10 seconds, meaning that you have to hope you can light both, avoid Ganon's attacks, strike him with your sword, switch to the silver arrows if you haven't already, and shoot him with one before one of the torches goes out, after which you have to immediately switch back to the fire rod or lamp and repeat the process a couple more times. Wait, is Zelda wearing a gold crown? Because she's had a silver crown throughout the game. Why does she suddenly have a gold one? Can they agree on a name? I thought this place was called the Pond of Happiness. That's what it said every time I visited it. The lost old man would eventually move away from Death Mountain and Hyrule altogether to a little region known as Hoenn, where he lived out the rest of his days surrounded by rolling geodudes that fell off Mount Chimney. So really nothing changed. I noticed that you had designers for the ground in the back, but no designers for the ground in the front. Why is that? The in The Legend of Zelda should be capitalized. Otherwise, you're saying that the series is just called Legend of Zelda. So as we touched upon earlier, this game marks the first time the name Ganondorf is used, though as we read in the manual, Ganon is more of a nickname, whereas the character's real original name is Ganondorf Dragmire. That by itself is fine, even if I do think it's unnecessary to have an actual name that we never end up calling the character by. The part that I think is a little worse, and that along with the surname Dragmire you would only know if you read the manual, is that Ganon is only part of his nickname. His full nickname is Mandrag Ganon, which means Ganon of the Enchanted Thieves. And why not just call him that? Why do we need a real name that's only referenced like twice and then add an additional title to his nickname that you then have to explain anyway? Like I said, it enriches the character and the story a little bit, but overall it's just kind of pointless, especially if there's no distinction between his light and dark world forms, like I originally thought there was. At least then it makes a bit more sense for there to be a distinction between the two names. This is actually one of the better written and more descriptive manuals I read for one of these videos, and contains really cool lore that, while not vital information that isn't otherwise explained in the game, paints a better picture of the events leading up to this game's start. Years after what's known as the Imprisoning War, where the Knights of Hyrule fought Ganon's army, giving the Seven Wise Men enough time to form a seal that kept the army and Ganon himself trapped in the Dark World, Hyrule lived in peace for a while until pestilence and drought befell the kingdom, something that even the magic of the Hylian people couldn't fix. The King of Hyrule had sent to find out if the seal to the Dark World had been broken and found that it was intact, meaning that this must have been something else entirely. Until one day, along came a powerful wizard known as Aghanim, who was able to resolve the kingdom's problems with a never-before-seen form of magic. Earning the king's trust, he was then appointed as the royal advisor. My question is, if the seal was undisturbed, how did Ganon manage to possess Aghanim's body to do his bidding? Is Aghanim just a dude that wandered into the Dark World and then got possessed by Ganon? How was Aghanim able to return to the Light World then? Was Aghanim always an accomplice of Ganon's? Because in the game, Ganon refers to Aghanim as his alter ego, meaning that he is Aghanim, but how is that possible? How did Ganon manage to escape then? And if he could do that, why even bother with the disguise? Who's going to stop you if you just show up as Ganon and kidnap the maidens? I get that earning the king's trust made it easier for you to do so, but it just seems like a roundabout way of accomplishing your goal when no one can stop you anyway. And if you are just puppeteering Aghanim's body, my question stands. How and why was that body able to return from the Dark World? We can do it because we have a magic mirror, but if Aghanim has something similar, couldn't Ganon just use that himself? And if Aghanim was never in the Dark World before the events of this game and was possessed by Ganon in the Light World, how do you do that? And why isn't that ever brought up? It seems like a simple enough explanation. It's just weird that Aghanim as a character is so confusing, because he's the stand-in for the bad guy, but also is the bad guy, and no one knows where he came from, nor how he got here, or how Ganon made him do this, if he made him do it at all. Wait, so Link is still blonde in this game? Why is his hair pink in-game then? I've seen people say that it's to match the shared color palette with Link's bunny form in the Dark World, but that can't be true because they're not even close to the same shade of pink. I've seen others say that it's due to color palette limitations altogether, but that can't be right because Link has yellows and browns on his color palette, particularly on his belt and the brim of his hat. Which is irrelevant anyway because the color palette changes entirely depending on the male you have, which all have yellow in them. And the predominant theory is that they made his hair a distinct color for the sake of readability, so that he would stand out on CRT TVs back in the day, but I don't buy this explanation either. You're telling me that you spend most of the game in green clothes, running around in the Light World covered in green grass, trees, and bushes, but having yellow hair would have made it confusing to look at? This is a night like no other. Who is Zelda? Where had your uncle gone and for what reason? Who is Zelda? We've had 2 games and you don't know who the 2 girls you've saved with the same name are? Also, and just because I know there will be some people shouting at their screens and getting ready to type in the comments, yes, I know that these aren't the same Link and Zelda from the first 2 games and that this is technically a prequel to the original games, this being the era of Light and Dark and the other 2 being the era of Decline, but we didn't know that back then. There was no Hyrule Historia. This was the third game in the series. Why wouldn't Link know who Zelda is? Especially when it wraps up the prologue by saying a new chapter in the legend of Hyrule's hero begins, a new chapter in the legend of Zelda. This isn't technically a new chapter, it's an all new legend altogether. Also, that last statement implies that Zelda is the hero of Hyrule, but that would be Link. I get that they had to dedicate a page to what each button does, and so they have to talk about the Y button, but it's kinda weird to single out these 3 items, especially when the manual talks about them again later in the dedicated section about the items. If you find the elusive Fairy Queen, she will restore all your lost hearts. Is that the Fairy Queen? Because I thought Venus, the fairy we meet at the Pond of Happiness, was the Queen of Fairies. That's what the game says. These two are not the same character. You can talk to the fortune teller to have your fortune read. This information can give you an idea of what to do next. You should have your fortune read as many times as possible. The cost of each session changes with the mood of the fortune teller. Wait, what? He can just charge me based off of his vibe at any particular moment? That doesn't seem fair. Again, not that you should ever need to talk to this guy, but if he's in a particularly foul mood, he can just charge you 200 rupees for telling you to brush your nasty-ass teeth? That's f***ed up. Oops, as a proper pronoun, the S in Master Sword should be capitalized here. Fragile walls. Wall and floors with cracks. You mean walls and floors, right? There's not just one. On the flip side, you have this misnomer. The name and description for the mushroom suggests that there are multiple of them to find when there's really only one. And then this one is more of a technicality. You do get a shovel in your inventory when playing the game that gets you a piece of heart in the Dark World, and the one Flute Boy lends you to dig up the flute, but in both those instances, you don't really keep the shovel, so does it really need to be listed as an item? So I just realized this, but the manual refers to the canes of Burna and Somaria as the staves of Burna and Somaria. And then the description for the staff of Burna says that it's a wand. Well, which is it? A staff and a cane are at least similar. A wand is a completely different object. Next you'll be calling it a rod and a scepter. This section of the manual summarily guides you through the first third of the game, up until your first encounter with Aghanim, under the premise that all this information is written for us in the Book of Mudora, which I find hilarious. Some of the instructions are so specific that it kinda reads like the ancient Hylians just wrote a walkthrough for the hero of Hyrule. Okay dude, so you're gonna start at your house, Zelda's gonna talk to you or whatever, then your uncle's gonna leave and you have to follow him, find the secret entrance at the side of the castle, and get his sword and shield. Then you gotta get the boomerang. Also, I find it kinda odd that even the manual suggests you go to Kakariko Village after rescuing Zelda because, again, she tells you what to do and even marks Shara the Genie of the Ring's location on your map. I get it, getting to Kakariko is easier and technically more beneficial because of the items you can collect there, but it's not going to help you find where you need to go. You already know where you need to go. You spelled Master Sword correctly a bunch of times on this very page, yet somehow you forgot to capitalize the S again here. I get that a bestiary doesn't really need to be in any particular order, but why would you start with the Stalfos Knight? He's only ever found in the Ice Palace, which again is the 8th palace you'll visit, 7th at the earliest. Wizrobe. This wizard appears and disappears using magic. You can only damage him only while he is visible. Well, I'm glad I can only do that only then. Hey everyone, Charai5 here. Thank you so much for watching my CINEMASINS pastiche of everything wrong with The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Now, of the Zelda games that I've played so far, I've only played the 2D ones up until Ocarina of Time. I think this one, A Link to the Past, might be my favorite one so far, just because I think it's the one that's the best designed. It takes the concept from the original Zelda, the top-down dungeon crawler, but designs it in a way that, while still tricky enough to not figure out right away, it feels infinitely more satisfying to figure out once you do, because it gives you the tools to figure it out on your own. It was the first time I didn't use a walkthrough for a Zelda game, and I do understand and I do recognize that my opinion of that may be a little skewed because, like I said, I played it on a live stream for the first time, so I did have people in chat who were kind enough to guide me for most of that, so there may be times where I might not have known what to do if I was playing it entirely on my own, so I know that my opinion of that may be a little influenced by that. Question of the video: which of the items in this game is your favorite? It's a tough one for me, but I think I'm gonna have to go with the boomerang. I do like the hook shot a lot, I think it's a great item, but the boomerang can stun items, you can hit switches with it, you can retrieve rupees and other things from afar. I think it's great. On screen, you're seeing the names of the wonderful patrons and channel members who decide to financially contribute to this channel every month. And if you'd like to see your profile picture and your name alongside theirs, you can do so by following the link in the description or hitting the join button underneath this video. You do not have to though. Free things like liking, commenting, subscribing, or even just sharing it with someone you think might like this video. All that helps
a ton. Make sure to check out CinemaSins, the channel whose format I pastiche. They also host sister channels that cover music videos, brands, and other topics. At least I think they still do. I'm not sure. I haven't really seen their stuff in almost a decade. I haven't really kept up with them, so I don't really actually know what they do nowadays. I've just said that shout-out phrase so many times that it's seared into my brain at this point. But anyway, thank you again so much for watching, guys. And until next time, stay safe, stay awesome. This is Charai5, signing off.